We're discussing happiness today, and I'm talking about real, deep, visceral, spiritual, soul-level happiness. It's called enlightenment, illumination. I live with people in horrible conditions that have this condition of spiritual awareness. You're aware that there is a God of the universe, and that this world is not a rightful place for anything good, decent, true, real, or especially eternal. When you fall in love with the one you love, true love, everything breaks up, dissipates. It's instant. Just, you know that you're born to be happy, to care, to love, and to be loved, which is unimaginable in this world, isn't it? People get love because they're a celebrity or whatever. It's craziness. But true love is something softer than a whisper, more tender than a cat's ear. It's just sweet and forever. You're born to live that in this world, and when enough of us do that, in the very near future, there are between 30 to 60 million people will gather together and get this in their awareness. You don't have to leave your room. You don't need your phone. Just know it. There's nothing wrong with you. You'll spend the next few years studying the way the world works. Read a book, study, look at it carefully. Forget all the news or whatever. There's nothing fascinating about it. Get very quiet and look at it, and look at it, and look at it. I'm using myself as an example, forgive me. You can talk to me about any subject in the world, and I won't react to it. And I'm always shocked how people even know what I am and what I do. Will bring up certain social area or monetary or political, and I'm like, whoa, you're throwing that at me. There's no reason to ever throw your emotions at another person. It's uncalled for, it's unnecessary. Turn it down, always. So when you study the way the world works, what spirituality is, religion, on your own a few years, Oliver Wendell Holmes, the great jurist, said that you don't begin your life until you do all of your own thinking. What a beautiful thought. And Oliver and I would think completely differently about everything in the social, political arena. Yet he's brilliant. And we'd have a complete friendship because we care. And we've done all of our own thinking, so we're not going to jump out at a thought, lose your dignity over someone's words. You know how weak that is? You know how many illuminated people do that? 0. You're born to reignite the torch of freedom in your heart and soul. For you. For your mother first, your friends, your loved ones, your lovers, your priest, your nun, your rabbi. Almost all my true friends are working people, work in restaurants nearby, or they, the guy that, Raymond, takes out the garbage in my home is the most magnificent, spiritual, happy human being I've ever known. And only he and I discuss that because he's got children, he's got work, it's in a rough society, and when you're born with this, it's wonderful. The world will knock it out of you. So somewhere in your late teens, your late early 20s, you maybe go through a drinking binge, or you didn't go to college, or you went to this, or you didn't do the other, and that's not right, wrong, anything. You're being set up by yourself, by your own soul. Your eyes see your true eyes see everything you're going through. And it's being directed like you're in God's cerebral cortex, all the thinking mind of the whole world. It's when you're illumined, you'll see everything, and you'll see all the forces behind it. behind everything and everyone. It's a wonderful knowledge and knowing and awareness. There's no more fear. This thing behind the world called the devil, Satan, he has his case. When you study him, like I did with my buddy the other day, quietly, we did depossessions on certain things and people related to his business, our life, whatever, and it's quite wonderful. And then we got to the source behind it, this being called Satan. And if you're really tough, like my buddy Greg here, you look at anyone's eyes if he gets in the ring, and he's never going to move, never going to flinch. So when you look at Satan this way, the force behind all the forces that seem to be, and John and I were laughing, and I said, oh, he's got his case. And then he went into shock for a few hours. I'm not giving that anything. You see what I'm saying? You can't do this unless you know this. And when everything in the world hits you, sit back deep in your saddle and all is well. That horse you're sitting on has many different senses. To hear, to feel, 1,000 times more advanced than human awareness, because we're shut down because of the thinking mind and the stupidity of believing we're a body. It's not just that no one ever died. All spiritual people know this. No one ever lived. And that's what today's spiritual empowerment talk is about. You're not here, you were never born. That little aperture of birth where you have the staging area where people live or are going to born or they're dying in hospice, and you feel the presence of it, and it's magical. Every midwife that ever lived can tell you all about that. And so you very quietly, in a very steady way, like a surgeon would be, like you're doing pediatric brain surgery, you have to use all your tools very lightly, very delicately. You can't be excited, you can't be miserable, you can only be and do what you're trained to do. I'm trying to think of some circumstances like my Tibetan friends when I lived there 55 years ago, whatever. Happiest people I've ever known, well, 1 million of their people were being slaughtered, their families, the nuns being raped on the step of the temple, just horrible. It doesn't have to happen beyond these next few years. There is a God. There's a spiritual consciousness. There's a mom who gave her life to make you happy and stable and understand life. There's a dad who worked all day to protect you, to do his part. Respect them, honor them. And then respect and honor all the people in the world. You don't know who's going to come out of this clean. I work with my buddy with certain people who are like really deep, real bad people. And then when we freed the certain being inside them that has somehow worked their way and web and way into their life, and that was removed through spiritual means, the person was happy and the being was freed. You never know who's going to come out of this clean. What appears to be is just a shadow on the wall. It's not what's there. The world that seems to be is not what's there. So study it and learn about it, read about it, whatever it takes to comprehend this world system, what it's supposed to be, in inner space, outer space, science, not knowing always quietly that to not react to it. So this way, because you're born to be a teacher, when you have to work with people of a higher intelligence or lower, you'll know how to work in there. They use the words, the framework of the awareness they have of the world, the way they see it, and quietly reach in and say, I understand what you're saying. However, let's look at another area of this, another way of looking at it. You see, I'm just using these words, but when I work with people, believe me, there's a presence of God through me, through them. They feel it. They feel me reaching into their heart with more love than heaven. You're a healer. This is what you're meant to do here. Just give yourself, gather up the tools, understand what's around you. Don't take anything personal. And yet everything is personal, isn't it? And the world tries to make everything personal and react to this. There's no reacting. That's the first step. And the more, like Oliver Wendell Holmes, the great tourist, I can use many, many names. Dag Hammarskjöld, one of my favorites, because he was illumined and was the Secretary General of the United Nations. He was a saint that no one knew. And he stepped in, sorry, I got very bad allergies. I apologize for that. And so he gave himself to world peace in a very direct way, visiting all the dictators of the world and trying to bring certain groups and factions together that were pure evil. Finally, one of them did take him out in his plane, took it down. But the point is, you never know who or what or when or where, but the truly illumined support this world. I remember coming back from my Tibetan friends in Nepal, and my Baba Bedi and his wife, she was the senior nun of all the nuns in Tibet. And I remember telling all my friends there was some Christian group, and I love the people, but they were a little stiff in the world, but beautiful, and fight to do the right thing. And I was teaching meditation, and somewhere I came up with the idea that they were talking about such and such group, and I said, the only Christian, this is like about a couple months after I returned from the East, and I said the only true Christians I really met were all in the mountains of India, or Nepal, or Tibet, because they lived a higher consciousness. The Christ light, whatever you want, is theirs. They represented it in a way in the worst conditions. And they didn't hate their captors. Can you imagine that? I have a friend that I met one time, and she was very blessed, and she was kidnapped once, and somehow at the end of the 2 weeks, she made a great friendship with the kidnapper, because she had God in her heart. She did not know that at the time, but it worked out that way. It's a horrible example, but it's true. It's true. And I'm not saying to turn the other cheek. Stand your ground for everything in this life, but quietly, simply, purely. Protect your family, of course. You understand, there's little edges of this where the edges disappear when you're quiet enough, when you meet your Maker, and you see yourself in His eyes, and know you are the image of God. You're a valiant soul. You're a great presence. You're a force to be contended with. There's nothing weak about you. I know I'm illumined and born that way, and I up until the second we started this class, there was a clash of titans all around us, and the walls shaking, the people, everyone confused. And I'm very quiet inside, and so this is my one, at home I can do this 24 hours a day. But we're doing it in the middle of a very, very busy, very noisy gym that my buddy owns, and my buddy Greg teaches all martial arts kids here and so forth and so on, and adults and UFC people, and these kids are brilliant, a doctorate by my beautiful friend here. And my spiritual example for many, many years, who I saw spiritually would be here, met her years ago, and because she has this enlightenment experience, but her life has been like the rest of us. A bit silly, isn't it? Considering all of our native intelligence and purity and kindness, and wisdom we have, and the desire to care, to love, to be loved. And that's beautiful, to have love, to be loved. It's extraordinary. But when you take your step beyond this mortal realm to realize you are an immortal, that you allowed yourself to fall into this absurdity. Could we really dream for a moment that any God, even a lesser God, could have come up with the garbage and the vileness and the tragedy of being a human being in this world? The truth is, you're not in this world, you're not of the world. You are pure spirit. And everything that happened to you, you've allowed to happen to get to this place that you understand to do all of your own thinking. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Mr. Justice. I say that because that doesn't exist anymore in our world. Honor, integrity, studying to do the right thing. And that's okay. There is no dark force, there is no Satan, there is no world. And as soon as you're illumined, to know that, like my Tibetan buddies and Frida Beatty and the nuns, they've had a higher consciousness. The tragedies around them, the illness, the sickness, the tortures were, none of it escaped them, but they had to stay conscious to take care of the next one, the next one, the next one. It's like when Oliver would say, next case. That's going to be you shortly. I will make that promise to you with my heart and soul. Because God made that promise to you with his heart and soul. And God and you and I are the same person. There's only one Spirit. Yes, it's holy. Yes, it's you. All the powers, spiritually speaking, of the universe are for you. Utilize them, understand them. Gather these wondrous, diamond-studded, platinum-plated gifts. They're so wonderful. To know him, to know you. Get them out of your head, your psyche, your heart. Bleed it out if you must. There's nothing wrong with you. Use your gifts. You must have love and friendship and kindness and joy and wisdom. And a certain formality about yourself and a certain ease and a grace. You are the embodiment of God. Never let that leave your thought. Please. You'll overcome the whole world without half trying once you understand this. You sit back in your easy chair from time to time, in your car, walking down the street, holding hands of your child, whatever. These things will come to you. And remind yourself of them. And live with them. You will abide with God forever. If you read the Holy Scripture, read Revelations, and you'll skip through it, maybe chapter 19, I think. I read it 50 years ago because I have to read it. And it only happened because I was in the mountains in Dehradun at a friend's home where I lived there alone for a couple months. Maybe 1971, I don't know, 70, 71. And I picked up a Bible, which I never really read. I always had one in my pocket, a little one. Carried it through the Marine Corps and so on. And I finally sat down and opened it up. I was shocked. The disciples and so forth, it was the same as the old book, but it was written in a way, the King James Bible, with such awareness that I knew here were men that were allowed to live their spirituality publicly. You'll do that, but in a very gracious way. Last night there were a bunch of doctors from Stanford at a party, and I would have to walk through, and one of them knew me somewhere, and I wound up massaging their shoulders, doing little blessings in the middle of all this. Very nice people, but just trying to be healers in the middle of a very unusual time in our social political atmosphere. Point is, you can do anything, anywhere. You can use your gifts. I'll use my gifts. I'll use your gifts. You use my gifts. You are God's gift to the age. It's you. Don't look around anywhere else, and you'll feel this stirring in your heart and soul, and you'll live it. I wrote 2 books. Susan George wrote, in my name, the name is Robert Rosenberg. It's called After Time, and that's from Revelation 10, I guess. And the other one, Island of Hearts, like this YouTube thing. Read them. It has all the details in this from page to page in a very poetic, wondrous way. So over and over you'll understand that you're to flow through this like a warm breeze. Through the flowers in the field. You'll live with a peace, a serenity, a joy. And when everyone's clamoring around you, you'll understand that it's all one substance, this thing from Satan that creates the world. Nothing that seems to be, including the world and the lives we live, have anything to do with all the different forces. This is kabuki theater, whatever you want to call it. It's all projected. When you get quiet and calm, and you see all this breaking up, it'll be like your visual field, your psychic field. It'll all break up, and you'll start looking all through it, and you realize it's all not just a mirage, but it's projected by this idiot called Satan. And I'm not giving it, it's like my friends in Tibet knew that there were different beings and so forth, so a lifetime of deep awareness and meditation. You have to practice this. Practice the presence. It's yours. It's your block you're defending. Protect your neighborhood, your mom, your dad, your family, your sisters, your brothers, and every innocent person, and every kitten, and every cat by the name of Zach, because they're protecting the treasure of true love that lives in your heart, in your mom's heart. Free your mom. Understand what she went through to have you understand what life is, to be responsible. Imagine what she went through. Because we're all going through it. We've all gone through it, if we're honest. We have people around us that are tough or this or that, or strong in certain ways. If you talk to them quietly, this is what I do. Well, you'll see that everyone in the world has their case. Different complications, whatever. I work here because we have a lot of professional fighters. My teacher, Professor Peter Mink, my jiu-jitsu teacher and all, and he's an enlightened person. He has great spirituality. Of course, Greg does. Andre Sukumta, the UFC fighter, they all train people. They're all completely spiritual. In other words, they have God's presence with them, in them, through them. So when they teach kids and all, they can discipline kids in a way that most parents in modern America somehow are unable to do anymore, and you'll just cry. They give what a mom wants to give, and in a very judicious, spiritual way. It's a spiritual discipline. I'm not talking about fighting. I'm talking about learning about yourself. Every time you do this, you become a little more powerful, a little more aware, and you slough off little fears and trepidations about everything in your life. It's not about what happens in this room with Greg, with the little kids. He insists that they have to be an A student, respect their mom, and so forth and so on. And they do. And because they get so much out of this. It's the empowerment is something invisible that happens inside, which was envisioned by Bodhidharma 1600 years ago when he took Buddhism from India to China, started the Shaolin monasteries and so on, and it started Chan Buddhism, which is Zen Buddhism, and it started the flowering of the beautiful age of Japanese culture. And all the samurai, they were also had to study flower arranging and painting. So why is that? Because it was a spiritual discipline. And when it was done right, which was half of the time, it was that. And so they weren't afraid of being hurt. And that's why you learn, you train. Their concern was protecting what's behind them. What's behind them? Well, they learned about painting, about the gardening, about family, that they were protecting civilization. That's now your job. I give you my sword. Bless your mom. Look in the eyes of everyone quietly, diligently, and those who can be saved, meaning illumined. The original word in the Bible, saved, meant illumined. It's not saved from sin. You fight sin. It's you can quietly look at it and it's gone. Yes, it's wonderful to have remorse about this like we're supposed to, even though we're completely innocent. I know I never meant to hurt anyone I hurt, and I'm only concerned about 2 people I hurt, and it's like the setup, the demonic forces were so enormous. And I'm still working out certain details of it. We all are, aren't we? We're of one accord, one mind, one body, one soul. We are the instrument of the end time. You will fulfill your spiritual destiny. There's nothing wrong with you. Study the world, understand how life really works in every way, not to understand this or that area of medicine, it's to see that's how it's done. In Tibet, we'll say with medicine, they'll give you a salve or an ointment or a little powder, crushed herbs, whatever, and they'll always tell you, plus save a chicken. In other words, a chicken is going to be slaughtered, you have to go save it. In other words, open your heart to compassion. That's always not an answer. It's always the answer. Open your heart fearlessly. The only thing that can hurt you is that guy named Satan, and look at him and very quietly, and this is deeper than anyone's ever gone, just realize he has a case and he'll be locked up for a while. And I'll give him a chance a little longer. In other words, there are all these thousands of beings that flower out from him, and it'll all be gone. Just long enough for you to find out exactly what's happening, study all the areas of conscious awareness that you can, and you'll walk through it in your own way and use your own words with your own temperament. You will heal the nations. It's your destiny. Forget everything else that ever happened. Get those 2 books, Island of Hearts and After Time, and read the Revelation, whatever. And like I am the last Bible thumper in the world, but I'm simply saying because I see it as a spiritual poem. It's one long, beautiful poem about divinity, preciousness, kindness, caring. It's just a miracle that so much of it has lasted through all the manipulation and craziness of this world, that anything lasts that long. And all the spiritual texts and writing in it, you'll find from 15,000 years ago, literally, in the mountains, the Himalayan mountains from Tibet. You have these block printing, you'll find the deepest thoughts imaginable in a spiritual sense, and everything in the world, and everything that's said this morning, and will be said, until the last day, the final moment when we'll close the book on this chapter of eternity. You're hereby given a holy sword. That holy sword is your heart that you were born with. We all came here as one presence. Can you imagine that? Me being spiritual, and I run into my spiritual friends, we're not even here. My buddy Dr. Rondo, he's a chiropractor in San Jose, Louis, and he's a Lumen, so we never talk about it ever. All we do is make fun of each other, as strong men do, and interspersed with presences that you only dream about. I only dream about you, literally, since I was a young boy. We're here to do something wonderful and good. Free your heart. Free your soul. Begin with Mom. Thank you for listening to me. God bless your holy destiny and your beautiful heart and soul. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Skolta.